All right.
We're taking all the best old school wisdom and blending it with the top new school methods to bring you the optimal coaching strategies.
This is the 80-20 Baseball Podcast with Coach Bo.
Welcome, my 80-20 baseball team. Episode 108, our weekly get-together here, coming out every Tuesday. We're talking coaching strategies, coaching tips, a coaching blueprint, specifically youth baseball. Speaking of youth baseball, the youth fall coaching webinar is available on the website, 8020baseball.com. So go over there, check that out. There is also a rules guide, a cut and paste, a print and use rules guide with all the steps and how to do that and how to implement that. That's available over there. And also the drill design guide is free for you over there. Not to mention 13 coaching videos and another dozen articles specific for baseball coaching, more specifically for youth baseball coaching, although it does get advanced. But hey, I can't help it sometimes. Sometimes we just, we talk about advanced things, but it's really centered around youth baseball coaching. That's my goal, is to have 80-20 baseball. For those of you that want to be a part of this team, I want it to be a main hub. Again, I wouldn't recommend just being your only stop, but your main hub for most of your information, the paradigm. And then you have some things sprinkled in there to make your coaching life a lot easier, to go out there prepared, ready to go with a crystal clear understanding of what to do and what not to do. So go over to 8020baseball.com, check that out. And now for this episode, I'm going to share with you a personal coaching flaw story, something I messed up on. Not the beginning of my career, but about a third of the way into my coaching career. Messed up on that. I'll share with you what we can learn from it, where I'm at now with that, and how you can use that to be better coaches. I'm also going to share out why you're sending a message. Maybe you don't even know you're doing it, but you are sending a message to your players, an unhealthy message, when you react and give them feedback on every physical error. This is something that is ubiquitous through youth sports, through definitely youth sports, not so much as you get older, because there's a little more autonomy and there's also more responsibility and accountability put on the players. But this is something that can be used and definitely helpful at the youth baseball level, youth softball level. I know I got an email from a coach. You know who you are. You're using the hitting plan and some other things out there at a Division II college. So this is stuff that just plays at any level. It really does. In fact, even though this is a youth baseball focused, I'm really trying hard to serve and focus on the youth baseball coaching community. The game of baseball is the game of baseball. So what you can learn here for youth baseball is definitely applicable all the way through. In fact, I would recommend this to college and pro coaches to listen to this podcast. Of course, now my background, college, professional, high level, high school, there's a lot of background there, but I try to synthesize it. I try to filter it. I try to boil it down to the key message, the key coaching strategies and tips that youth baseball coaches can use, because the time is much more condensed for youth baseball coaches. And also I try to give it and share it on an advanced level, because I know that youth baseball coaches sometimes get discredited for how intelligent all of you are. You're super intelligent. You're just as intelligent as a college coach or professional coach. The only difference is they've spent years and years and years in the baseball arena. They've been in the trenches of baseball, but you've been in the trenches of life just as long as a lot of them, and you're just as intelligent as all of them across the board. It's probably the same. But if I took an intelligence test of all the coaches that coach youth baseball, the dads, the moms, just those volunteer coaches, and put your intelligence test scores against college baseball coaches, professional baseball coaches, on average, it wouldn't be any different. It wouldn't be any different at all. What it is those college professional coaches, high-level high school coaches have a lot of experience, and that's what I'm trying to draw from and bring into this podcast, the 80-20 baseball community, and share with you. Speaking of sharing, the last two things, the third and fourth thing that we're going to share out today in this episode, number 3 is going to be a side effect, a massively beneficial side effect of our hitting approach, something that we haven't discussed yet, but a benefit to all of our hitters that comes from coaching the hitting approach, the way we approach it and coach it. And the last part of today's episode, the tweets of the month. I got my top 5 coaching tweets of the month, so we're going to hit that at the very end. Let's get into it. Number 1, coaching flaw story. So early on, 5 years into my coaching career, my philosophy as a coach, I started not really the philosophy. I wasn't tied to it too much, but I did start to implement a throwing routine. Well, I already implemented a throwing routine. I grew up with a throwing routine. That was just part of the culture that I grew up on in high school and college and pro ball. But I took took the long toss portion out of it, partly because of what I had been coached up on in college and pro ball. Some of the long toss was reduced or sometimes eliminated. They put a governor on it. They put a cap on the distance that we could throw the long toss routine, the throwing program at. And so the idea made some sense. There is a flaw, and I talk about it in my long toss vetted article on 80-20 baseball. It's not all good. Long toss is not all good. There is a big trade-off with long toss. And that big trade-off, not to get into it too much, you can go read the article, but the big trade-off on long toss is the throwing angle of long toss is nothing like the throwing angle of a pitch, any type of pitch from a pitcher, which is the most important throw in all of baseball, is the pitcher executing the pitches. Everything else happens after that. But the most important throws in baseball, easily, bar none, are the pitchers making pitches. They're throwing the ball, they're making pitches. That's the most important throw. And a long toss throw is not like that in terms of its angle. If somebody told your hitters, set up the tee and start jacking balls at like a 70-degree launch angle, a 50-degree launch angle, a 40-degree launch angle, and then said, okay, in the game, I want you to hit a 10-degree launch angle, a 15-degree launch angle, a 5-degree, a 25-degree launch angle. That'd be really hard for your swing to start adjusting if you were just launching them up into the top of the net when your swing was a severe uppercut, or if you were hacking it down at, say, a negative 50 launch angle. And then in the game, you expected your swings from your hitters to be at a 15, a 20. I love that 20-degree, 15-degree launch angle. I love that 15-degree launch angle. This would be very problematic for building better habits, but that's what long toss does. You can say what you want. This is true. It doesn't get talked about in the baseball community. Long toss inherently makes you throw when you get out there 200, 300, 400 feet for some of these guys. You have to throw at an angle that's upward, and that's nothing like a pitch, nothing like a pitch at all. In fact, there's no such thing as a pitch from a pitcher that goes up at all. It's a negative angle, a negative throw angle on all of them. You could say a curveball might pop out, on a fastball like Nuke LaLoosh or Charlie Sheen in Major League. Yeah, those are going up a little bit, but even then, those are relatively flat because the release point for a professional pitcher is about 5.5 feet, say, off the ground, 5 feet, 6 feet off the ground. I think it's like 5.5 feet, the average release height of a pitch. Well, can you imagine the pitch crossing the plate at 5.5 feet? It would never be a strike. It would never be close to the strike zone. It would always be up above it. It would be up by the hitter's chin. It would be up by the hitter's eyes because hitters usually have bent knees. They're not standing straight up, even though they're 6 feet tall, 6'2". They're not standing straight up and things like that. So this is the big flaw with long toss, but it can be overcome. And if you go read the article, it can be overcome. And if you check the 80-20 baseball fall webinar, the throwing program's in there, and it breaks it down exactly how we come back in from the long toss and how important that is. But nonetheless, early on, I just shelved long toss. I said, hey, we're going to cap it at, 120 or 150. I think we're capping it at 150 for a few years, my teams, my pitching staffs. And I'm not a big fan of that. I'm a fan of long toss. It has a trade-off that needs to be addressed. And it also, to me, needs to not be the vast majority of all the throws when it comes to the throwing routine. You're teaching the arm, the body to release the ball at an upward angle. No, even outfielders, very few outfielders, definitely infielders, no, they don't make this throw of an upward angle. Any throw that goes up much more than 5 degrees is going to sail. It's going to sail over the cutoff man's head. It's going to sail over the first baseman's head. It's going to sail over the second baseman's head. If you throw with an upward angle much more than 5 degrees or say 10 degrees, you're asking for an airmail, an air, and a big problem with that throw. You have your guys out there, your kids out there throwing before practice. You have them do this severe long toss, and then you go out to do some cutoffs and relays, and you want your outfielders to hit the relay man, throw it through the relay man, but you just trained them. You just trained them to throw it at an upward angle, and now you want them to throw it on a line, I'm telling you, you can do it and the body can adjust, sure, but it makes it a lot more difficult. But nonetheless, I made the error of just taking long toss out. I do like the idea of long toss. You can see the benefits of it. I list out the benefits. There's definitely some big benefits, but it's not the end all. It's not the cure all. It's not the magic bullet by any means. I think it's overrated by a lot of people. I think it's also undervalued by some. I do think it's this like throw long toss and you'll throw 98 miles an hour. I do think it's a part of throwing harder. I do think it's a part of building arm strength and arm durability and endurance, but it's definitely not the end all be all. That was a flaw that I made early on. I just shelved it. I didn't think about it in terms of some of the benefits. I thought it's either all or nothing, like either you're all long toss or you're no long toss. And I found that through the years, testing it out, trying it out, that there's a medium there. So there's some diehard long toss people. There's some people known in the baseball community just like they're like the long toss guy. That's not a good deal, right? They put way too much value. And then you all know if you follow baseball, you know who I'm talking about. Like that's just, there's too much value on it in that case. But there's a lot of teams that did for years and years high-level high-level college, professional, major league teams that would cap their throwers, their players at a certain distance, like 120 feet. And that's not good. Avoid the extremes. And I went one way. I capped it at like 150, so it wasn't quite the far extreme, but I did cap it when some of my guys could have easily thrown 250, 300 some feet. And I capped it, and I think that wasn't to the benefit of them overall. But I've learned that if you have some parameters and if you have some things that are adjustments and trade-offs that you can work after that long toss, that upward throwing angle the elbow creates and the ball creates, if you can adjust afterwards, you can benefit, players can benefit from long toss. So that was a coaching flaw story that I wanted to share with you. Hey, I played a lot of baseball before I made this flaw. I coached, had some success, was coaching some very successful. In fact, one of the pitchers, even before this, went on to play in the major leagues, pitch in the major leagues at 23. The teams that I coached before that had a lot of success. Pitching staff set some school ERAs. And even then, I still fell into the trap of making that error, a flaw of just one way or the other. So wanted to share that coaching flaw of mine with you so you know that, hey, you're not going to be perfect. But what I'm trying to do is take all the experience of that, my testing from my coaching days now, and share with you a much more direct path to success. Speaking of path to success, by reacting and giving feedback on every physical error, by reacting and feeling like you need to, and then giving feedback verbally or with your body language, giving some feedback or thought or feedback to your players after a ground ball goes between their legs for the first time, or after they drop a fly ball, or after they make one bad throw. You are sending the message, even though you're just trying to help, it's usually coming from a good place. You are sending the message to your players, whether you know it or not, you're sending the message to your players, to some players more than others, of course, that the player can't figure it out or can't figure out things on their own. If you need to address every physical error, if you feel the need to address and control and have that control kind of mentality, control everything, if you can't bite your lip, bite your tongue, and not say something every time a player makes an error physically on your team, not hustle issues are a different thing. Disrespect issues are a totally different thing. But if every time one of your players makes a physical error and you can't just bite your lip and just, hey, you were telling that kid indirectly, you are really saying, you're sending a message to that kid, to that player, that you don't trust them to figure it out on their own. You're sending that message to them. If you think about it, you know what I'm saying here is absolutely correct. And the reaction that you get from players when you are literally telling them every time they made an error, what to do different, what to fix, why this, that, and the other, you are sending the message to those players that they can't, or you don't trust them to figure out things on their own. Sometimes they aren't going to figure it out. And a lot of times they might not figure it out on their own. But first, give them a little bit of a chance. Give them a little slack. You wouldn't go out walking your dog with a 1-inch leash. Well, maybe if you have a pit bull that's already got a history, but you get my point. You're going to give some slack. Give your kids, your players, a little autonomy. People are wired to thrive with some autonomy, some more than others. People are wired to thrive with autonomy. You know what I'm saying is true. It's a fundamental wiring principle of human beings. Kids love autonomy. Adults thrive with autonomy. We thrive with parameters, but we thrive with autonomy within parameters. So if kids and players and people thrive with some autonomy, and sometimes a lot of autonomy, sometimes less, but when we know people thrive with autonomy for the most part, why would we take it away by then telling them after everything they mess up on how to fix it, how to correct it? That's not autonomy. So take that to heart, take that to mind, coaches. Utilize this. That is a big deal. I told you my default recommendation, do not comment, do not address the first physical error at a practice for each player. Let each player make a physical error before you address it. Maybe 2 physical errors if you have a lot of trust in that player, or you know that they're working on something specifically. If this is a hustle issue, you address it immediately. If it's a rules issue, address it immediately. If it's a disrespect issue, you address it immediately. If it's a safety issue, you address it immediately. Outside of those 4 things, let the kids play a little bit. I'm telling you this, been saying this for a long time. I truly believe that half of youth baseball teams that I've seen over the years, half of them would actually be better off without a coach out there. Just a mom or a dad in the stands to make sure things didn't get out of hand and kids didn't fight and things, didn't get stupid and dumb. But I truly think the Sandlot approach would be better than about half of the things that are going on from the coaches in the youth baseball community. Part of it is because we overdo it, we overcorrect, we over-address, let the kids play within parameters, and then when they show a pattern of failure, step step in, give them some feedback, and don't fall for the trap that I had set for me when I was coaching years ago. I had a dad come up and he said, hey, you're not coaching them every time they make an error. Now, this dad did not play baseball. He hadn't played baseball since junior high, and he knew my resume, and he said to me, you're not coaching him. You're letting him in the ball in between his legs. You should go tell him what he did wrong. I said, hey, part of being an experienced coach is knowing not to correct everything, not to address everything. And also, I trust the players. This is a 14U team. I said, I trust these kids. They're about to go to high school. I trust them to figure a little bit of this out, not all of it. If he does it 2 or 3 times, I'll step in. But he came to me and said, hey, I don't think you're coaching them up enough. And I said, you're paying me to coach. You're not paying me to coach them up on quantity. You're paying me to get results with these kids to have them be more successful as people and players. And this is going to make them more successful. All right. Speaking of coaching up your team and specifically talking about the hitting plan, the coaching up of the hitting approach, here's some interesting look at this. I truly believe this is an interesting take on this. The vast majority of kids, the vast majority, the super majority of players and coaches and fans, but definitely players and hitters, they know what a good pitch looks like to hit. And they can learn it really quick if they don't, but most of them know what a good pitch looks like, what a strike. They know what a strike is. They know what a strike isn't. And if they don't, you can teach this. You can train this quickly. I think hitters, even young hitters, even 8U hitters and 6U and 9U hitters, definitely older than that, those hitters, they know for the most part what a good pitch to hit is and what a strike is or isn't. You could have them hold the ball out over the plate. You know, they're in their stance, they're by the plate, and say, hey, hold the ball or put the tee, set the ball on the tee, set the tee inside, outside, middle, up, down, wherever you think it should be for a pitch that is good to hit. Put it where you think a good location is for you as a hitter to do some damage. I think they'd all be pretty much right around the right area. Not all of them, but they'd have a pretty good understanding. I think all players have a pretty good understanding of what a good pitch is to hit, what a strike is, what a ball is. Now, challenging them to train the approach takes time because now they have to do it in tenths of a second. They have 1/10, 2/10 of a second to figure out whether to swing or not. That's different, but that takes some training. But if you just stopped and said, hey, hold the ball out over the plate where you think in the area that you think you could do the most damage, I think most hitters would be pretty accurate where they could hit the ball, and they wouldn't, even if they wasn't like their hot zone, it would be in an area that they could hit the ball pretty well in. Here's the thing. If you asked players exactly how to make a perfect swing or what the perfect swing or what a good, really good swing looks like, or you asked a hitting coach or a coach in general what a good swing is, exactly the technique of a good swing, all the parameters of a good swing and all the points of a good swing, the timing, the elbows, the hands, the legs, the base, the hip angle. If you started to ask coaches and players that question, you'd have a lot more air. Some coaches really grasp the hitting, swing, the technique really well, but there's going to be a lot more air when it comes to players. They're not really going to have a solid understanding of what a good swing technique is when you think about all the things that are involved physically with the swing, bat pass, swing path, hit it out in front or let it travel a little more. Do you choke up? Do you not choke up? There will be a lot more misunderstanding. There will be a lot less clarity on what makes a good swing versus what makes a good pitch to hit. There is always going to be, I truly believe there's always going to be a lot more uncertainty as to what makes a really good swing. Not even into getting it actually accomplished. We're not even talking about what you have to do to get there. We're not even talking about the training. We're not going to even talk about the training to get a swing perfected or near perfection or really good and dialed in. I'm just talking about understanding what it would look like or even how to explain it. But players, 7U, high school, 10U, college, pro, they can almost always tell you where about a good pitch would be to hit. So when you teach the hitting plan, you teach that hitting approach, you are getting into something that's a lot more solid for them to understand. There's less guesswork. It seems that teaching the swing is a heck of a lot more difficult. So let's coach the bigger guarantee and then make whatever quality of swing our players have a lot more effective because the quality of pitches they're swinging at are a heck of a lot better. Let me say that again. Let's coach up the hitting plan, the hitting approach, because it's a much higher guarantee. It's a much higher guarantee that they're going to understand and already know what a good pitch selection looks like. Now, repetitions is going to make this better. Repetition is going to make this better, of course. It's not always going to be pretty. They're going to chase. They're going to swing at bad pitches. They're going to get jammed. They're going to swing at pitches that they shouldn't have swung at with less than 2 strikes, and they're going to chase pitches in the dirt that bounce 2 feet in front front of home plate, even with 2 strikes, which aren't pitches we're trying to swing at, even with 2 strikes. That's not protecting the strike zone. That's just being foolish. But let's coach the much higher guarantee and then make whatever quality of swing our players do have more effective, because the quality of the pitches they're swinging at are a heck of a lot better. The fastest way to make a swing a lot better is to swing at good pitches. You want a better swing? Swing at better pitches. That's the fastest way to getting a swing better. On average, all things considered, all coaches considered in their abilities to coach up the swing. So you as a hitting coach, you as a coach teaching hitters, you may not know, you may not have a clue what a good swing looks like. I know you all do, but let's just say you didn't. I guarantee if you could just take the pitch selection, the hitting approach, hitting plan, and teach that swing would come along and be a lot more effective. Even if it was a junky swing, they'd be a lot more effective because they're swinging at good pitches, and thus the probability of them doing some damage on it or not chasing pitches, or with 2 strikes, protecting the strike zone, not going down looking or not chasing pitches that are way out of the zone. That to me is a huge difference maker. And that's why I would teach, one of the big reasons I would teach and really hammer home the hitting plan, the hitting approach, pitch selection before you got in depth or deep into the hitting swing, because it's a lot easier to say, and we're going to be a lot more accurate teaching hitters good pitch selection versus what a good swing is. All right, the last 5 minutes, we're going to hammer through this quick. The top 5 tweets of the month. Coach Kinnan on Twitter at Coach Kinnan. He said this: anytime someone asks about hitting approach, speaking of hitting approach, he shared a diagram. He said, this is one of the first things that comes to my mind. Doesn't get much easier to explain than this. Now, I know this is an audio podcast, so showing the illustration here is a lot more difficult. But imagine he's got a screenshot of a baseball field. No players are on it, but it's just a screenshot of a field, the grass and the dirt of a baseball field from, up above, from behind home plate, like from the press box view. And it's this screenshot. It's an image of a baseball field from the press box view. Nicely cut field, nice grass. And it has like a meme. In the outfield, where the outfield is, it says not lots of guys. And where the infield dirt is, it says lots of guys. So outfield, it says not lots of guys. Infield says lots of guys. The idea is if you hit it to the infield, you're going to have a pitcher and 4 infielders. Let's subtract the catcher, but you could add the catcher in because the catcher can definitely get to some balls out in front of home plate. So you really are truly dealing with 6 infielders that are covering a much smaller area of square footage. So you have 6 covering a smaller square footage. In the outfield, you typically have 3 outfielders unless it's slow pitch or you're facing one of these Moneyball teams that's testing this stuff out. In the outfield, you typically have 3 outfielders and a lot more square footage. I'm guessing it's probably double the square footage in the outfield, yet there's 3 guys versus 6. Half the guys, twice the space. Of course, in the outfield, they have more time to react. Infielders have less time to react. I get that. But are you telling me a hard hit ground ball or a line drive to the outfield is a heck of a lot different? I don't think the outfielder is going to get like an extra 10 steps just because it's to the outfield. That ball is moving pretty quick. So a line drive to the outfield is not a whole lot slower than a hard ground ball to the infield in terms of like reaction time. So I like that quote from Coach Kinnan. Not lots of guys in the outfield, lots of guys in infield. Next, Patrick Jones. He said, take advantage every time you're on deck. Timing is such a big part for hitters and I'm paraphrasing this, when they're in the on deck circle. Timing is such a big part of hitting. So take advantage of that time on deck, the on deck hitter. Don't just stand there. Don't have your on deck hitters just stand there with a bat weight the entire time and just standing around. Use those minutes to get your timing down. This is huge. Use the timing because now you have the pitcher you're likely going to face on the mound pitching, and you have a pretty good vantage point. You don't have to be in the dugout. There's no rule. You can be out there on the on deck circle, which gets you closer. You legally can stand closer, and you have your bat in your hand. You can legally take swings. You're not going to get yelled at for taking swings. So the hitter's closer to home plate. They're not in the dugout. Now they're closer. They have the bat, and the pitcher they're likely going to face, 97% of the time is the guy that's on the mound, assuming there's not a pitching change after that next batter. So get the timing down. That's the best time to work on the timing. If a hitter has a leg lift or stride or whatever, that's the time to get that down. Get it down because each pitcher's windup and delivery has a little bit of a timing nuance to it, or has some kind of movement nuance or starting mechanism that might be a little different. So timing is such a big part of hitting. This is what Patrick Jones is saying. Use the on-deck circle as the focus on the on-deck circle, and I agree 100% with Patrick here. The focus on the on-deck circle should be timing, getting the timing dialed in. Time that pitcher, time his pitch to the plate, get the timing right. Tweet number 3 of the month. And these are in no particular order, although I might start ranking them. Speaking of rankings, top of the rankings, college football, Coach Saban. I've been on record here. I'm a huge fan of Coach Saban. I do think he yells a little much, but he's coaching football, so that's a pretty intense sport. You got to be pretty jazzed up, jacked up for that sport. Nick Saban, he went off on a pre-Thanksgiving rant directed at self-absorbed Alabama fans. Like I said, I've been on those sidelines. I've seen that. I played some football. You know, it's a pretty jazzed up sport. It's pretty jacked up. You got to have some, it's a little bit more intensity than baseball, right? Intensity in baseball doesn't always help very much, but intensity in football can be massive. In fact, if you go out there on a football field without some intensity, you're going to get knocked out real quick. You're going to be carted off the field. You're going to be hanging out in one of those tents, those doctor tents, unless those things are out in the parking lot with the tailgaters and the barbecue and all those great barbecues things they got, especially out in the SEC, drinking some cold ones and having a nice pulled pork sandwich. You don't want to be in that. So you got to have some energy. You got to bring a little oomph to it. So I get Nick Saban. He has a little extra energy. He's jacked up. His dad was that way. His dad's passed, but his dad was his first football coach. And I guess that's where he got it from. I've read a couple of Nick Saban books, so I understand that it's part of kind of his wiring. But nonetheless, he goes off on that pregame, self-absorbed. He talks about Alabama fans, talking about, now this isn't a baseball ones, but I love Nick Saban. I think he's going to go down. I truly believe when he's done, he's going to go down in the class. It's going to be John Wooden and Nick Saban. And then there's going to be some others right there, a couple others. But I think he's going to go down up there with John Wooden. And John Wooden, man, just amazing. So I would say it's going to be John Wooden is 1A, Nick Saban 1B, and then the rest. I mean, in terms of like coaching, not just college, but high school and professional coaching. But nevertheless, Nick Saban went off. You got to check it out. It's titled The Nick Saban Show, Nick Saban Rant. Go check that out. So he goes off on, long story short, he goes off and he says, hey fans, nobody cares about these players winning more than the players. And really his message was, hey, our team is not going to win every game by 5 touchdowns. He said, when I got here, the fans were happy to win a game. Now they're not happy unless the team beats a top 25 team by 3 touchdowns or 5 touchdowns. He goes, unless we win big, they're not happy. When I first got here, which wasn't a long time ago, wasn't 30 years ago, the fans were just happy to win a game. They were just happy to beat Kent State. Now they don't get happy unless they win by 5 touchdowns. And this was coming off a close game, I think against Arkansas or somebody. And so his rant was, and I thought the message we could learn from his rant was, coaches, you're not, even though your team may be better than other teams, you're not always going to win every game by a ton, or even if you lose doesn't mean you're worse than the other team. Okay. I remember coaching football right after I got done playing pro baseball. I started coaching high school. I'd already coached baseball, but I started coaching some varsity high school football. And for a long time coach, like a 50-year coach, not 50-year-old, like 50 years in football coaching, one of the most successful coaches, high school football coaches, Southern California history, Bill Pendleton. And I remember him saying to the TV person, to the reporter after a game, it was a local Fox Sports reporter. And he said after the game, we beat a rival like 38-3 or something. We crushed a rival. It should have been closer, but everything went our way and we won 38-3 at their place. And he said to the reporter, I remember watching the TV later with him out there, we were getting some dinner at like a Chili's or whatever. It's like the Applebee's of like Southern California. And we're sitting there and he says to the reporter, we're not 38 points or what he said, we're not 35 points better than that team. We're not 35 points better than that team. Just everything went right tonight. And that's kind of what Nick Saban was saying is like, you're not always going to win every game by a bunch. And that's okay. You want to go out there, you want to battle and embrace those tight contests as a coach. So don't get mad at your team. We should have beat them by 15. We should have beat them by 10. We should have beat them by 20. We should have mercy ruled them. No. That's not a good attitude to have. Wins are wins and battles are good. And things like that can really make players in the long run a lot tougher than just these blowouts. All right. Tweet number 4, you got to go check this out. Mark Phillips posted essentially a single leg squat. So he's got a baseball player. He's doing a single leg squat and he's got a medicine ball being thrown to him. So not only is he doing a single leg squat, I'm a huge fan of single leg work, single leg, unilateral squats, things like that, Romanian deadlifts. I'm a big fan of single leg work, just balance work for that matter. I'm a big fan of single leg work because baseball is a single leg sport for the most part. In those power positions, single leg strength is super important. Balance, mobility with the single leg. And he has a player on one of those like Bosu ball things, like one of those balance balls with the flat top. It's like a half a ball with a flat top. I know you all have seen these. And he's doing single leg squats. The player's doing single leg squats on top of this balance board type thing. And the coach is throwing a fitness ball at him, like a plyo ball or a medicine ball to him. I thought this was a great workout, fun. I thought it was really cool and definitely advantageous for players to do. I do apologize apologize. A few of these are a little hard to grasp, maybe fully on a podcast episode, but I'm doing my best. And I think most of you can piece it together how I'm wording it and explaining it. Last but not least, Coach Bo. Sounds familiar. I sent out a tweet. Players should never get the idea that they are the coach's friend, but they should be certain that the coach genuinely cares about them. Think about that. Let that guide you. Players should never get the idea that they are your friend as a coach. They should never get the idea that they are the coach's friend, but they should be certain that the coach genuinely cares about them. Let that sink in, absorb that, use that as your paradigm, use that as your foundation when you go out there. You want all the kids to genuinely know that you care about them, but don't ever let them get the idea that they're your friend. If you're a coach and you're trying to be buddy-buddy or friends with your players, you need to quit and you need to go into something else. Players don't need friends from their coaches. They need coaches to be a leader and a mentor and somebody to guide them, not a friend. They got friends. All right, that concludes this week's episode. Remember, these episodes come out every Tuesday, and you can follow me, 8020_baseball, 8020_baseball. That's on Twitter, so at 8020baseball. There's an underscore in between the 8020 and the word baseball. Check out 8020baseball.com. You can spend hours over there checking things out, reading things, watching those videos, get that drill guide, get the recording of the fall coaching webinar, all the drill videos that come with that, tons of drill. I think it's 8 drill videos that come with that purchase. Go check that out. Until next week, y'all know what I'm going to say here. Take care of your health. Take care of your health so you can take care of your family, help your friends, and be a better coach. Go out there, help the baseball community be a better place. Take this information, go out there, put it into action, use it, and have a lot more success. I love being here with all of you. Look forward to being back here next week. Email me, Coach Bo at 8020baseball.com, Coach Bo at 8020baseball.com. In the meantime, if you have any questions or things like that, and until next week, adios.
This has been the 80/20 Baseball Masterclass. Take it to the field.